Here's your report.
Thanks, Jane. I wish I could hire a whole team of yous.
Try posting a job on LinkedIn. It's the world's largest professional network. Unlike resumes, LinkedIn gives a real-time view into a candidate's skills, experiences, and more.
Let's do it. You're irreplaceable, Jane, but another you would be great.
Find your perfect match with LinkedIn. Post your free job at linkedin.com/achieve. That's linkedin.com/achieve. Terms and conditions apply.
Auto insurance can all seem the same until it comes time to use it. So don't get stuck paying more for less coverage. Switch to USAA Auto Insurance and you could start saving money in no time. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
USAA. This episode is brought to you by Abercrombie. There's nothing better than the perfect jean and going out top combo, or an outfit that perfectly matches your plans. Abercrombie's relaxed jean goes with every occasion. Date nights with something lace, or daytime with a cozy sweater. And their barrel jean will surprise you. It's the trend that will become a staple in your wardrobe. Abercrombie denim comes in tons of rises, fits, and washes. Find your perfect pair online or in store.
With Kale at her side, Selena forces her body beyond its limits in her effort to prepare for the looming first trial in her bid to become the King's champion. She judges her competitors at the first gathering of the group, and more than once Selena wishes she could put each of them in their place. However, at the command of her sponsors, Selena tries to perform in the middle of the pack without standing out enough to do well or poorly during her training. Along the way, she meets Nehemia, another potential ally or foe who is similarly captive in the palace at Rifthold. In the end, it takes all of Selena's strength and will to successfully complete the first test.
Hey there, we're Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy, your book besties who take the novels you love seriously.
We embrace and respect modern fantasy, romance, and romantasy books written by women. And so it's in our nature to analyze these books as we would any other novel we might have dissected in school.
We combine our 13 years of literary academic training, and we use our education to analyze and give voice to reasons why you may love or may hate today's popular books.
This is part 1 of this week's episode, where we're discussing chapters 11 through 15 of Sarah J. Maas's debut novel, Throne of Glass. For a complete list of episodes and chapter breakdowns, be sure to check out our Instagram at the handle Book Talk for Book Talk.
Before we dive in, let's talk about Split, which feels like our version of Spew. If you know, you know. Split stands for Spoilers, Perspective and Interpretation, Language, and Themes.
Spoilers. While our discussion is about Throne of Glass, important context from the first 3 novels in the series will be discussed without spoiler warnings. That is specifically Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, and Heir of Fire. This is not a read-along for anyone who hasn't read at least the first 3 books, and you will be spoiled from here on out. So please take this as your only spoiler warning. For all other spoilers beyond Heir of Fire and other SJM works, we will keep those in the breadcrumbs and broomsticks area at the end of the episode.
Perspective and interpretation. What we discuss in this episode are strictly our personal interpretation of the text. We do not speak for Sarah J. Maas and in no way know her intentions for books or characters. We also know our listeners have their own personal views and opinions, and we encourage you to share your thoughts with us because every perspective and interpretation is worth exploring.
Language. Even though Jac tries to keep her swearing to a minimum for the sake of her mother, I definitely do not. And so explicit language does occur.
Themes. We also discuss some heavy subjects throughout the podcast that can include themes of sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death. While we will do our best to give trigger warnings for the darker themes, we will discuss these topics when they are important to the text. Listener discretion is advised.
As always, we love keeping the conversation going because our listeners are so good at finding things we've overlooked or missed completely. You can share your interpretation of the text with us by posting on social media, tagging us in stories, sending us DMs, or submitting to the forum on our website. We also post more exclusive content and host live streams for our Patreon supporters. You can find us at patreon.com/Book Talk for Book Talk. This week, we're asking ourselves the question, what do we learn about how Selena views herself in the way she judges others?
Themes we'll see in this section include pride and judgment. But before we go forward and before you issue your judgment onto us, quick heads up, it is January 11th, when we're recording this, the last episode we recorded was in December. LA is on fire. We live in LA. We had two fires that were really close to us. I had to go leave to my aunt's. My uncle died. I've been a mess. We're hanging on by a thread here, guys. So things might, and I forgot that we have a podcast. I forgot how to podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Amy, you're also saying like this feels so foreign to us.
Yeah, that's what happens when we go from recording 2 episodes a week to not recording for 3 or 4 weeks. So we're readjusting to
Yeah.
how we do this.
Yep. So, please take pity on us and donate to any fire relief.
We're starting in chapter 11, and it is the first morning since Selena has met all her competitors for the position of the King's Champion. Now, I find it very curious that it's Kale and not Philippa who is waking up Selena. It's like Philippa doesn't exist, to be honest, for the next 10 chapters.
Oh, yeah.
Despite her surroundings, Selena continues to be treated like a prisoner, even though she's been 100% compliant up until this point. If you've read this series, you know Kale just doesn't trust anybody, and we're seeing that in how Selena is being treated right now. Kale's intention is obviously to keep a close eye on Selena at all times. That's why he's the one waking her up, eating breakfast with her, escorting her places. This action continues to remind us, and Selena herself, of the power dynamics that Selena does not have anyone she can lord over, though I promise she will try.
The way he wakes her up too is pretty aggressive. Like it's unnecessarily aggressive. Quote, "She's shimming beneath the blankets, pulling them over her head, but he grabbed the covers and threw them to the floor." I find this also a good scene because we're seeing her in a bed this time. Because the last time that Kale woke her up, she was sleeping on the floor. And we talked about her sleeping on the floor last time as really showing that she's struggling to adjust to this non slave lifestyle. And here we're seeing that she's adapting, but not necessarily healing, but we can see her adapting. So it's a good way of subtle progression of growth on SJM's part.
Yeah, and she can't heal because Kale is treating her like he's a guard at a prison and she's a prisoner. Like,
Yeah. I mean, this is just great foreplay. Again, in my mind, they're all in their late 20s and 30s. But am I wrong?
So, despite her new surroundings, Selena is tired and ill prepared for the trial ahead. She didn't sleep on the floor, she slept in a bed. She should be at least well rested. When Kale asks why she's so tired, Selena thinks to herself, quote, "It would have been nice if the crown prince had considered springing her from Endovier earlier so she could have some time to regain her strength." This begs the question that I am sure Selena is wondering because I am wondering it. If Dorian really wants her to win, why did he wait until the last minute to go? And I know there's a lot of time for traveling, but he gave her no time to prepare because now that she's here, the thing is starting. He's basically setting her up for failure.
Yeah.
The other question I ask myself is it more about Dorian trying to show his strength and defiance against his father by picking Selena, and he doesn't really care if she wins? So I have lots of questions about Dorian.
I definitely think he doesn't care about winning, and it's just about pissing off his dad. If he cared about winning, one, yes, he would give her more time to train, I also feel like that's such a early princeling Dorian move where he just doesn't think ahead and he's like, "Oh, right, you have to account for travel."
Yeah.
And who knows what the time zones are in this place too. And, she's just trying to adjust. I speaking as someone who is in a different time zone, but if he really did care about her winning, why wouldn't he be here helping her train? Why wouldn't he be at least more of a presence in this book at this point? I think you're onto something. I want to look at this particular quote, and this is when Kale throws the sheets off of Selena. Quote, "If he noticed how much skin she was showing, he didn't react." I find the dynamic that Selena has with her own body and the way that other people, particularly men, view her body to be very poignant. So for this moment, sex, the female body, everything about Selena does not work on Kale. And it shows that she's going to need different tools when it comes to him. And we're going to see in this episode, as we did in the past episodes, that Selena clocks when men look her up and down. And this is one of those, like, Kale's just not like the other boys moment.
He's so pick me.
He's so pick me. He doesn't even pick her.
As Kale is forcing Selena out of bed, Selena commands him. "Fetch my slippers," she mumbled. "The floor's like ice." Now, on one hand, when I first read this, I felt like this was retaliation on Selena's part. She's trying to disrupt the current power dynamics and gain some control by making this demand of Kale. However, I also came to realize this might actually be a subtle breadcrumb because Selena is in fact royal and she is treating him like a servant, like she would if she was the princess of this palace.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, it totally is like, go get me my slippers.
Mm-hmm.
Another point of view, fake demands to prove a point just to rile him up. I don't think she actually expects him to go get her slippers or anything, but she's doing it to get a reaction. Her legs didn't do it. So what if I demand some slippers? Especially since, skin's not showing. So then we have this quote. He growled, but Selena ignored him as she got to her feet. So she is getting a reaction out of him, but in my mind, it's a combo of, because her princessness really, really slips in, even though she was only a princess till she was 8. But you know what? You can take the girl out of the princess, but you can't take the princess out of the girl.
Yep, that's how the saying goes. Now we come to learn that the reason Selena happens to be so tired is because she was reading all night. And I can't blame her for that. She hasn't had access to books in a long time. It makes sense. But we also see that tiredness impact her well-being. She, quote, staggered and slouched as she goes to the table. This is important because this is one of several times in this chapter and the coming chapters in this episode that Selena allows her weakness to be seen. As a prideful person, this is unusual and it will quickly be nipped in the bud. But for right now, Selena can't help it. There's too much to hide that she's not capable of hiding it. She doesn't care now, but as she comes to meet her fellow competitors, she will care very much.
Seriously. I mean, I get it. It's hard not to go to sleep reading this Draco Hermione fan fiction right now. It is. Wait, actually, just so people know what I'm reading. I dropped my phone on that one. I was really excited. But people always ask me what Draco Hermione fan fiction I'm reading, and this is such a diversion. Okay, Secrets and Masks by I can't remember. Anyway, so I understand staying up all night reading. However, there is a certain cockiness to her doing this. She has been enslaved for a year now. She has been working in the mines, and yet there is a certain amount of confidence of, I don't need to get ready to train. I can just stay up all night, and that pride, that ego is going to come back, and we're going to see it soon, over and over and over again.
Yeah, I'm so glad you pointed that out because I didn't even think about the fact that this is one of the only times we see her stay up all night to read. And it's because she's overly confident that despite a year of slavery, she's still Aderlin's greatest assassin.
Yeah. I'll be fine. These boys are stupid. And then she's going to get her ass kicked. And then suddenly the training sequence begins.
I was going to start singing a montage like from Rocky. I don't even remember what it is, so never mind.
I was going Mulan.
Also acceptable.
Make a man out of you.
I did appreciate that when Selena goes to eat her breakfast, she explicitly, quote, stabbed her fork into a piece of sausage. It's just a friendly reminder that even a fork can be a weapon, and Selena is quick to wield weapons.
Sausage, like his sausage. I'm just saying, like, we know what we're doing. She's stabbing a sausage and biting it. There is a threat there.
Ultimately, though, Kale does call her out for the weakness she's demonstrating and asking her why she's so tired. Is he shaming her for her weakness, or is he asking out of concern because he wants to make sure Dorian succeeds? I don't know. I think he just likes to give Selena as much as she gives him in terms of sassiness.
He's a sassy boy. I also think that Kale knows that she's a fighter and is surprised by her lack of caring and being prepared, because Kale is meticulous. Kale is a general. I don't know. I can't remember what he is, but he's a captain of the guard. He's very, he's regimented. He knows what it takes.
Hmm.
She is Aderlin's greatest assassin. So what the hell is she doing just reading and not caring? So I think he's a little bit surprised at what's going on with her here. And it's like, don't you care?
Yeah, right. Unlike maybe Dorian, I'm making an assumption there. Kale knows what it takes to stay fit, stay on top of your game, and reading is not part of staying on top of your game as an assassin. So either he's shocked at her ego,
Mm-hmm.
or he's shocked that she's not taking it more seriously and realizing how weak she is right now, because she is malnourished, right?
Yeah.
Everybody can see that. So,
I have a thought real fast. I
okay.
just want to share before you go into your next thought.
Yeah.
Dorian is like, because we live in LA, I hope you know exactly what I'm talking about. Dorian is the guy at the gym who has no chest hair, who has the most ripped six pack, but like can't really lift a desk to save his life. Like he's like fake hot. You know what I mean? Like he's not actually strong. It's just like the muscles are perfect. Versus Kale reminds me of the guys where, there's some hair on the chest. And does he have a six pack? No. But damn, he can pick some things up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I
He's
know exactly
fit,
what you're saying. Yeah.
but just a little girthy and like,
Yeah.
but a
Yeah.
good kind. Anyway, we're back. They're 29 and 30 plus in my mind. Remember this.
Got it. Got it. Selena explains to Kale, quote, I sent a letter to your princeling asking for permission to borrow books from the library. He granted my wish and sent 7 books from his personal library that I'm commanded to read. This is followed by, quote, she gave him a simpering smile and took a bite of ham. He could have ignored the letter, and besides, I'm his champion. Not everyone feels obligated to be as nasty to me as you do. Selena in this moment is being extremely patronizing to Kale, and in some ways, this is the only way she has power over him. I feel like she's trying to gaslight Kale at this moment by trying to convince him and demonstrate, well, I'm just following orders. The prince told me to read. And therefore, if she can follow orders, she can be trusted. Also, at the same time, Selena's probably, and rightly so, trying to get under Kale's skin by implying closeness with the prince, which we're going to learn over the course of several episodes. This is very annoying to Kale. Kale does not want Selena and Dorian to have any relationship. What we're seeing is this kind of game-like dynamic between Kale and Selena, and they both enjoy it, but they pretend to not enjoy it. At this moment, it's obvious to me that Selena doesn't like Kale. However, for all of us who've read this book, we know that that's going to start to change really, really fast. And I will be interested to see if we think it's believable.
I'm just so happy that, she kind of gets with both of them. Good for her. Good for her.
Why choose?
Why choose? This novel could have been so different if it was for adults.
Yeah,
Anyway, let's have a discussion about clothing. And I'm coming from this at the feminist lens. Quote, Kale spoke to the servant girl. Dress her in pants and a shirt, something loose, nothing frilly or revealing, and bring a cloak. The girl disappeared into the dressing room. Selena followed after her, unceremoniously stripping down to her underclothes and enjoying it far too much when Kale's cheeks reddened before he turned away. There's an interesting dynamic happening here, and a couple things are playing out. One, Kale is ordering Selena's clothes, and the way that he's ordering it and what he's ordering for her is meant to empower her and make her successful. However, he's the one who's ordering it, so it's not really her empowerment or her success. Two, she is using her body to make him uncomfortable because of the bare legs didn't work earlier, so now it's like, well, what if I showed you more? And then three, I feel like Selena is using her body to make him uncomfortable because of the power he just exhibited. Because he's the one who's demanded, these are the clothes you're going to wear. She's saying, bitch, please look at me more now. And then when Selena sees her clothes, she says, quote, I look ridiculous. These pants are absurd and the shirt is awful. Stop whining. No one gives a damn about your clothes. Besides, you can take them off at the barracks. I'm sure everyone will be thrilled to see you in your undergarments. We just got a little Uno reverse, right? So at this moment, beforehand, she stripped down and he got, a little red. So, I'm sure Selena was thinking point one Selena. But now at this point, Kale's saying he does not care and saying, go ahead, go strip for the other people, whatever. And she's pointing out the fact that the clothes are ridiculous. How ridiculous are they? Like how it's just her whining about it, like to make a point, I can't imagine them being particularly frilly. Like he says that they're not frilly. He says that they're not to be stupid or, they're meant to be useful. And then at the same time, he's saying, go ahead, show off your body. It's not like I care.
So I'm going to look at the same moment, but through the Marxist lens. And looking back at this idea that Kale's like, well, I'm sure everyone will be thrilled to see you in your undergarments. If clothing is power, which I do think it is for Selena, this could be viewed as a metaphor for how the competition already views Selena. She's vulnerable, she's weak, probably mostly because she's a woman. The sexual undertones of this comment do bother me. Now, I understand that it's in retaliation to the fact that Selena basically stripped in front of Kale. However, I think in the context of what the conversations are going to be with the other competitors, especially how women are expected to be sex providers for men, makes this sexual conversation now seem very naive and ill-fitting.
Yeah.
Because that disappears very quickly from the conversation that Kale and Selena are going to have in the future.
We can pick up already that there's a lot of sexual violence against women in this world. And it just, you're going to get more of that, and it just gets more icky.
Yep.
At this point, then, Kayla. I found their power couple name. Kale and Selena enter the fighting space where they're going to train and do, and not just them, but like all the challenges are going to happen and everyone's training there. Quote, the giant rectangular room they entered was the size of a grand ballroom. Lined with pillars that supported a mezzanine, the floor was checkered with black and white tile, and the floor to ceiling glass doors that made up one entire wall were open, the gossamer curtains blowing in the chilly breeze that drifted in from the garden. It's very grandiose. It's meant to be very ostentatious, and there's this performance of like, you will perform your death for us. And there's going to be a little thing that I noticed later. So, circle back.
I'm excited to hear it. Outside the safety of her private quarters, Selena no longer has the luxury of being the snide version of herself that she is with Kale. Like Jack said, this is theater. Everything has become performance. Selena's been given the role of Lady Lillian Gordana?
Lady Gordy.
Let's stick with Lady Lillian.
Yeah.
And she plays that part. And honestly, I'm impressed how quickly she falls into that play acting role. We see this when Selena and Kale get to the training room. Selena comments, quote, you expect me to use a mace an hour after sunrise? I'm just a jewel thief, remember? What does this achieve when Selena was so annoyed the day before that she was told that this is her identity? Falling into this role of Lady Lillian that she's been assigned allows her to once again demonstrate obedience, which I think is part of her continuing to try to gaslight Kale. In her mind, when she looks around and sees all the weapons in the room, she thinks, quote, foolish decision to leave all these weapons out. Swords, sword breakers, axes, bows, pikes, hunting daggers, maces, spears, throwing knives, wooden staves. While she generally preferred the stealth of a dagger, she was familiar with every weapon here. Selena continues her performance even when Kane shows up in the training space. For whatever reason, he decides to approach Selena, and she doesn't balk at his words and tries to make sure she doesn't come across as weak at the same time. After Kane speaks to Selena, quote, gave him a closed lip smile. The fun's just starting, isn't it? I want to point out that right now her smile is closed-lipped. It's reserved, it's demure, it's mindful. She's not ready to show her fangs quite yet, which is appropriate to her role. She's a lady. She's aristocracy. But that's going to change the second she's no longer confident in what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I love her dynamic with Kane in the sense that it says a lot about Selena. And
Mm.
I'm going to keep coming to this point throughout the entire episode. So, the way that Selena views Kane, like I said, is going to speak about how she views herself. It's almost like we have themes and questions for this episode to deal with that. Quote, "It would have been so easy to whirl and grab him by the neck and slam his face into the ground. She didn't even realize she was trembling with rage until Kale stepped into her line of vision." Why does she feel rage at this moment? You know, I can almost understand why Kane would come up to her first. She's a woman,
Mhm.
she's most vulnerable in theory, not actuality, but in his mind, she's the weakest there. So, an evil guy like Kane would go and pick on the weakest one there. No logic there.
Mhm.
But, threatening men have no logic.
Right.
I'm coming back to this question. Why does this moment make her feel rage? And this is after Kane, quote, "His dark eyes snaked along her body, then found her face again and dismisses her at that point." Like he
Mm.
looks her up and down, he takes everything in and just whatever, I have no interest in you. He then walks so like I was saying, he walks into the room and in theory his action shows that she's a threat, but I believe that his action in his mind is showing to mock her, is
Mhm.
that she is a joke there. That up and down look, it's a silent objectification. So he dismisses her, and there's like this element where he questions her courage almost about like being there, of why she's there or not. And she's experienced all of these things already, right? She's already had people dismiss her. She's already
Mm.
had people look her up and down and objectify her, and yet she still feels rage. Why now? Why is it? And the best that I can come up with, so unless you think of anything else, is that Kane gets to be what Selena cannot. He gets
Mhm.
to be a peacock with his weapons and his "I am a murderer," but she doesn't get to show off. And Kane is everything that Selena's more vicious assassin side wants to be and doesn't get to be.
Yeah. So everything you're saying is giving me this thought that Kane picks Selena. I mean, he could have picked the like 12-year-old boy who's here. I
I
mean, he's
know.
not really 12, but he could have,
Yeah.
but this is what bullies do, right? They pick the weakest person everyone else perceives as weak as well to make them
Mhm.
seem so big. And quite frankly, if Selena had her rathers, if she was autonomous, she would do the same.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
she would peacock around, she would try to bully someone else as well, because at the end of the day, I'm going to talk a lot over the next few episodes how Selena is moral, but she's also a
But not?
bully.
Yeah.
But
But
not.
like what your thought sparked from my thought sparked to my another thought. So what is she doing? Like you're right. She would be if she got to be the assassin, she would go and bully someone else. She can't. So what does she do? So what does she do? She bullies Caltaine because that's the
Mm,
only person that she gets to be a bully. And I think we need to accept that we are not getting Aelin. We are
yeah.
getting Selena.
Yeah.
Selena kind of sucks.
Yep. Yep. I completely agree. And I mean, shit rolls downhill. Like,
Yeah.
if you're getting shit from above you, you're going to give shit below.
Yeah.
It's just how it happens. And that's unfortunately what's going to happen to Keltane.
Yeah. But I mean, like, also, I know people are gonna be like, but I love Aelin. Aelin is great. We're gonna get to Aelin, but in order to create a diamond, you have to shit first. I don't know. I was trying to go through your metaphor, but
You have to put pressure on the coal.
on the shit, yes, to get a diamond.
It might have been shit.
I
It's
don't,
fossilized shit, probably.
she'll become great, but we have to just see it what it is.
She has her moments that are good, and she
Hmm.
has many moments that are bad.
Yeah, she's growing.
I just want to point out something because SJM does this in her other books, and I thought it was worth pointing out that as Selena is looking at all the jewelry, looking at all the weapons, you can describe them almost as if they were jewelry. Quote, "All the weapons were finely made and glistened in the sunlight. She found herself torn between the hunting daggers and a lovely rapier with an ornate bell guard." This is important in my mind because a couple of reasons. One, it's the princess in her that is attracted to the finer things.
Hmm.
You would expect someone like Dorian to have an ornate bell guard, but you would
Yep.
not expect someone like Kale to have an ornate bell guard.
Yeah.
So that's for me one aspect of it. But the other aspect of it is she loves weapons. She loves her craft. And she has not been able to adorn herself in fine clothing, in jewelry, in weapons for a year. And so she's really cherishing this moment as she's reviewing the weapons.
I love it. I love it. Also, side note to the listener, if you hear things in the background, those are the helicopters fighting the fires near me. I can see there's a bunch, like they cross over me. I think there's a reservoir kind of nearby, but
Oh, that makes
I
sense.
like I just saw like 3 helicopters and I can hear it. So if listener, if you can hear it, reminder, there's a fire. All right. Someone wrote when I posted on our Instagram, someone sent, "Where's Aelin?
Come control the fire.
No, help us." Yeah. So, for the first time in this book, Selena gets access to a weapon. Quote, "The sword whined as she drew it from the stand and held it in her hands. It was a good blade, strong, smooth, light. They wouldn't let her have a butter knife on the table, but they gave her access to this?" There's a contradictions in the actions, right? Like, she can't have a butter knife, but she can have a whole ass sword. And I think it shows a lot about the place that they're in, the setting, the king, the everything, the actual palace. The people who think they have the power, which are the deadly champions, the ones who have the weapons, actually don't have the power. And then the
Mhm.
people you think don't have the power, like the ones who aren't capable of fighting, like the king, is actually the controlling manipulator who is in power of everything. So it is opposite day, right? Everyone
Mhm.
here, they think they're strong, they're wielding their sword. This is me wielding a sword, but you're not strong.
Yeah, and what I think is really important about this sequence is that we're building up this false narrative in the mind of Selena and the other champions that
Mhm.
they do have power,
Yeah.
right? And that's very, very quickly going to be taken away from them.
I'm realizing that SJM has like a really big theme in her, at least in this one and in Crescent City, and I can't remember in no, and in Ekatar, false power and
Mm-hmm.
giving people enough power over something to think that they have power.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
fun
It's how
facts.
you lull people into complacency.
Yeah.
If they think they have power, there's no reason for them to rebel, to fight back, to try to gain power. But if
What
you
do I think
secretly
I have power? What do you think we have power over? Your cats? No, they have power over you.
No, they die. Exactly.
Yeah.
Throughout the episode, we're going to see Selena judge other people's abilities simply by the way they appear or things they say, instead of waiting to see what they're actually capable of. The first time we see this happen is with Kale. Selena is unimpressed when he says, "On your guard," when they
Yeah,
choose
yeah.
to spar each other.
I feel like you can hear Selena in her head being like, "Nerd,
Yeah, exactly. Of
loser,
just like,
on your guard." Who says
who
that?
says that?
Dork. Yeah. Like the bully she is.
Yeah, she's such a bully. Kale then comments about the amount of killing Selena did in Endovier as evidence that she doesn't need to brush up on the basics. Selena responds, quote, "That was with a pickaxe," she said, her smile growing feral. "All I had to do was crack a man's head open or hurl the axe into his stomach. If you consider that sort of gracelessness equal to swordsmanship, what sort of fighting do you do, Captain Westfall?"
Boom.
Yeah, I mean, again, Selena sees her craft as an art form.
Hmm.
And to suggest basic survival is comparable to her craft means you have no true understanding of what it means to be a fighter
An
in Selena's
assassin.
mind. An assassin in Selena's mind. Exactly. What I like about this quote is that we see a little bit of Selena's savagery coming through. And this is the darkness that we're going to learn Kale is waiting to see come out of Selena. She does have that savagery, she does have that bully, but she doesn't always let it show. What's important right now is that Selena is mocking Kale and the implication that he doesn't respect the craft the way she does. And that does rile him. And it makes sense when you consider the fact she stayed up all night reading. And he's like, WTF, like, that's not what a trained fighter does. These two, Kale and Selena, are going to be constantly engaged in a battle of wills and skills. And no matter how skilled Selena is, it does not negate her weakness from her time in Endovier or the skill she assumed Kale would not have, because she definitely thought Kale would not have skill. To say on your guard before sparring implies you only know the practice version of swordsmanship, of fighting. You don't know what it means to really fight in battle or in a life or death situation. We see Selena's arrogance through that assumption, and I think it's the kind of arrogance that comes with youth.
Yeah.
She's going to say she knows not to take people at face value, but she still does. And that feels like a very young thing for her to do.
Does this mean that I'm young? Because I feel like I'll do that sometimes too. I'm like, God, what a nerd. And then
It's, I mean,
when I
there's a
say
reason
that, I mean mostly my stepdad, guys. Don't worry. I'm not a true bully.
that's fair.
What's also funny though is like later on we're gonna learn more about Kale's upbringing and why he knows how to fight, and then she's gonna become impressed with that. So it's kind of nice that we have this, he kind of sucks. How does he know how to fight? And then we're
Yeah.
gonna find, and then her judging him, and then later on, pretty quickly, she's gonna not judge him. So I like the little bookends and how things are resolved fairly quickly in this.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't
Yeah.
wait till the end of the book.
Yeah, I think SJM does a nice balancing of the scales.
Mhm.
Selena will go too far one way, and then very quickly something will happen to tip her back onto the, oh, I judged too soon.
Yeah, but that's growth, like
Yeah.
that's how we're seeing her grow.
Yeah.
And Selena sees the art, like you were saying, and that there's beauty even in death. So the sword fighting compared to dancing, right? Because like we said, there's an art there. Quote, sword play was like dancing. Certain steps must be followed or else it would fall apart. Once she heard the beat, it all came rushing back. The other competitors faded away into shadow and sunlight. She was moving fast, fast like a dancer in a temple ritual, fast like a snake in the red desert. This is the art, right? Like this is the thing. This is art, this is death, and she finds beauty in art. We know she likes music. We're going to see that she likes dancing, all these things that a princess would like. Or anyone, but all the things that she likes, that's in one. And I think that I truly believe that Selena doesn't actually like to cause death. I don't think she really necessarily likes to kill. I think she tries to find the beauty in death in order to survive it.
Mm-hmm.
And death and violence has a beauty, but it also becomes almost a spiritual experience, hence the dancer at a temple ritual. So she's good at it. She acts, I mean, we have to understand this is all an act. We do not know what Selena is like. We do not know her likes, her dislikes, what this is actually impacting her. So my conclusion is that because we're seeing her connect it to things that she likes, to beauty, it doesn't actually show that she likes it. I believe this is us seeing her trying to cope with it.
I think that's a really great point, because if we look at that last little piece, being a dancer in a temple ritual, that's like, and this idea of spiritual experiences, that's an out of body experience. And if she's doing something that she doesn't like, she has to disassociate from her body, the body that is committing the act, in order to have that spiritual disconnect, right? And it makes sense that she's disassociating so that she can find beauty, so that she can deal with whatever guilt or other feelings of shame she might carry by being an assassin.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for Selena, Kale does dominate the fight and knock Selena on her feet. Kale, they all start with C's.
I know.
Kale, Selena, Kane. I keep getting them all confused.
That, to me, that's like a first book mistake.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. It doesn't matter if they sound different, if they all
Different
look,
letters.
Yeah.
Different letters.
Change the letters.
There's many of them. 28.
26, actually.
Shit. I'm thinking about Puerto Rico and Hawaii and and Alaska, those other random ones on the side. Oh no. I went to college for so many years. I have a master's in comparative literature. What the fuck? Okay. We're all human. There's 26 letters. I haven't counted recently.
Yeah, there are 26.
I'm bad at math.
That's the right answer. Oh, man. So Kale does dominate the fight against Selena's assumptions and knocks Selena to her feet. During this time, Kane is watching and grins at Selena when they make eye contact, to which Selena, quote, bares her teeth at him. So this is the opposite of her polite closed lip smile from before, you know, the demure, the reserved. Selena is on the ground. Not only is she already viewed as being vulnerable, she is physically vulnerable on the ground. And she was bested by Kale in front of everyone else. Once again, emphasizing the viewpoint that she is weak against men. It's not surprising that her ego and general safety are feeling threatened right now. She has to bare her teeth to appear more threatening, like an animal, in an instant where she obviously does not have the upper hand. And that's what animals do. They bare their teeth. Cobras, expand their hood because they feel vulnerable.
And I see this in books all the time. They bared their
Yeah.
teeth. They do.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that. Be ferocious. Bare your teeth at me. You look so uncomfortable.
I am uncomfortable.
It's like, I feel like
it looks like you're constipated.
I feel like in the real world, it actually shows a lack of control. Like if someone were to actually kind of do that, like if you were to watching this a YouTube version of the episode, you'd see me trying to bare my teeth. I interpret that as a loss of control. So,
Yeah,
but
I see
in
that.
books, they do it all the time.
I know. And I know it's supposed to make them seem animalistic, or the Fae do it a lot. Fae always seem to bare their teeth. It's a very ugly action.
Unless you're a vampire. Like it doesn't work.
Okay, yeah. It works with vampires.
Vampires only. Werewolves allowed. Canines. Her ego, Selena's ego, it is showing here. Quote, "You have the skills," Kale said, "but some of your moves are still undisciplined." She broke her stare with Kane and glared up into Kale's face. "That's never stopped me from killing before," she spat. This goes against what Selena feels, right? She sees art and dancing in her movements when she's fighting, and yet he's calling her out for missing it, right? You can't have dance and not be undisciplined, right? Discipline is one of the most important things when you're dancing.
Yep.
And he's accusing her of not having that. So you can kind of see where it stings extra. So especially like she's spent years being disciplined.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, imagine being like a ballerina and someone saying, your arm's a little like
you're not really holding your form.
You're not, you're not holding your form. Your form is weak. Like that's what he's saying to her. You are weak.
Yeah.
And that is not okay with Selena.
It's going to a prima ballerina and saying, "Oh, your posture's not great."
Yeah. Woo. Prepare to die.
Right?
For maybe the first time since leaving the safe haven of her quarters, Selena is showing what she really thinks to combat her feelings of vulnerability. It is not often that Selena says something that is truthful that would be inconsistent with her gaslighting people into thinking she's obedient, right?
Yeah.
She's not supposed to demonstrate how vicious she can be.
Mm-hmm.
So when she tells Kale, quote, "You'll be sweating when I skin you alive and squish your eyeballs beneath my feet," she muttered. That is not something she should admit to.
Yeah.
And yet Kale responds, "That's the spirit." Which I really like this moment and this exchange, because at the heart of them, at the heart of Selena and at the heart of Kale, they actually have a lot in common.
Mm-hmm.
And this right here demonstrates some of the viciousness they both have is similar. And I think why they do ultimately become drawn to each other. Unfortunately for Kale, he has a hard time appreciating it when he also mistrusts it.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways that's a reflection of himself, right? In some ways he can't even trust himself.
Yeah.
Which is a topic for another book.
Another time.
Anyway, back to Selena. Like Kane, Selena's no longer hiding her threats. And I think that's important. I think as Jac has already been saying, there is a connection between Cain and Selena. Cain and Selena are similar. We're going to see it. Selena's not capable of seeing it because in this moment, both Cain and Cale are not taking her seriously and view her as a weaker opponent. Instead, Selena associates Cale with Cain instead of herself with Cain. And I think that complicates some of Selena's views of Cale.
Oh, we're going to do some A plus B equals C. So if Selena views herself as Cain and she views Cain as Cale, Selena is Cale.
Which is accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. That was just one chapter.
Whew.
I hope everyone's happy. We'll be right back.
This episode of Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy is brought to you by Wild Grain. Wild Grain is the first Bake from Frozen subscription box for artisanal breads, pastries, and pastas.
Wild Grain's boxes are fully customizable to your tastes and dietary restrictions. In addition to their classic variety box, they recently launched a new gluten-free box and plant-based box that is 100% vegan. Best of all, they take the hassle out of baking since all items bake from frozen in 25 minutes or less with no mess or cleanup.
Just this weekend, I baked their large sourdough loaf, and let me tell you how crunchy, crispy that crust was, but the interior was super soft and chewy. I ate that entire loaf within 36 hours by myself.
And that's okay because I ate their baguette by myself. They also have fresh pasta, which, oh my God, I feel fancy. This is much better than the grocery store stuff. And the fact that we get to bake bread.
Wild Grain gives you that fresh bakery feel without having to go out to the bakery, which I love.
Are you ready to bring all your favorite carbs right to your doorstep? Be sure to check out Wild Grain so you can begin building your own box of artisanal breads, pasta, and pastries.
For a limited time, Wild Grain is offering our listeners $30 off the first box, plus free croissants in every box when you go to wildgrain.com/booktalk. BOOKTALK to start your subscription.
You heard her. Free croissants in every box and $30 off your first box when you go to wildgrain.com/booktalk.
That's wildgrain.com/booktalk. BOOKTALK. Or you can use promo code BOOKTALK at checkout. My new focus in life and in my wardrobe is quiet luxury. The things that are nice, that make me feel good, but I know are worth the money that I spent on it without being boisterous.
I've definitely noticed that I've been spending more time on elevating what I'm purchasing, and some of my favorite go-to items have been from Quince. That's because they offer a range of high-quality items, but with prices that are within reach and very reasonable.
They have 100% Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50 and washable silk tops and dresses that I love to wear to work.
Quince items are usually priced between 50 to 80% less than other similar brands.
They work with top factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing processes and cut out the middleman in the process.
One of my all-time favorite cardigans is actually from Quince, and every time I wear it, I always get compliments of how cozy and how soft it is.
My favorite Quince item is this button-up washable silk blouse that I wear to work, and what I love about it is it's so versatile. I can pair it with a cardigan, I can wear it on its own, I can wear it with a blazer, and it always makes me feel good about myself.
Give yourself the luxury gift you deserve with Quince. Go to quince.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns.
That's QUINCE.com/booktalk to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK. As most of our listeners know, I'm getting married, and let me tell you, getting married is expensive.
Let me tell you, being a guest to your wedding is expensive, and that's where Acorns come in.
Acorns is a financial wellness app that makes it easy to start saving and investing for your future, and in my case, my wedding.
You don't need to be an expert. Acorns will recommend a diversified portfolio that matches you to your money goals.
You don't need to be rich. Acorns lets you get started with the spare money you've got right now, even if all you've got is spare change.
Money planning stresses me out quite a bit, and Acorns makes it so easy.
It only takes 5 minutes to create an account with Acorns and start investing. It gives you small, simple steps to get you and your money on track, which is sometimes just the hardest part.
I love it because no matter what age you are, it's always important to be able to take control of your money and your investments.
So sign up now and join the over 13 million all-time customers who've already saved and invested over $22 billion with Acorns. Head to acorns.com/booktalk, that's BOOKTALK, or download the Acorns app to get started. Paid client endorsement compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. Tier 1 compensation provided. Investing involves risk. Acorns Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK.
Lowe's knows that free is just better. That's why MyLowe's Rewards is free to join. As a member, you earn points towards MyLowe's money on eligible purchases, get exclusive free gifts, and earn free shipping at Silver Key status, all on top of weekly member-only deals. Don't wait. Join MyLowe's Rewards for free today and start saving more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
We are now in chapter 12, and Brullo, who is what, weapons master?
Something.
He's master of something, of fighting, enters the training area, and each of the champions introduces themselves. This is prime time for Selena to do some judging. Honestly, it feels like the first class, any first like college seminar class where there's 20 people in it and you all have to introduce yourselves. Everybody is judging each other.
I never was judging each other.
Oh, I definitely was, especially in writing classes.
And that's hilarious how much you're like, where is everyone? And I'm thinking, is any guy here cute or single?
And I was like, I don't think they'll be a good writer. They might be a good writer.
God.
The naivety of youth. I am just as bad as Selena when I was her age.
I haven't grown. Are they kind of cute? Are they single?
Priorities, man.
Yeah.
Even though the chapter starts with Selena thinking, quote, she knew better than anyone not to underestimate opponents based on their appearance. It's exactly what does not happen with Selena.
Yeah, and it's insight to her own reality, how people are constantly judging her and have different expectations of her because of how she looks. And yet she does the same, but whatever.
Yeah. It's quid pro quo, and that's I think that's a concept we see in all of SJM's books, but I was really shocked at how much it's in this book, in Throne of Glass.
It's overt. It is very aggressive in your face.
It is very much the Mosaic Law, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. It's the same thing. Whatever Selena receives from people, she's going to put back out.
Yep. Yeah.
So we start with Cain. When Cain reveals he's from the White Fang Mountains, Selena thinks, quote, she'd heard tales of the brutality of the mountain folk from that region. Many of them had rebelled against Aderlin, and most wound up dead. What would his fellow mountain dwellers say if they could see him now? She gritted her teeth. What would the people of Terrason say if they could see her now? See, Selena is not immune to comparison, and where she didn't see it in the last chapter, she's seeing it now, that she and Cain are not unsimilar. Now, we're supposed to read this and interpret it as Selena's not particularly proud of her circumstance right now and what she's doing, and she doesn't really want to be the king's champion, but she doesn't have the luxury of choice. It's a means to an end, and that end is freedom. However, even if freedom is the ultimate goal, that does not stop the fact that she and Cain are alike, and ultimately through their actions, they are betraying their people.
It's so much internal conflict going on, and we do not see it. You know, you just kind of have, like, this is one of those things that when you do the reread, you start to see, oh my God, I missed this. And even though it's right in our faces.
Yeah. This is what I love about early SJM writing. This was what I loved about A Court of Thorns and Roses. Is that there is so much happening that is not surface level.
Yeah. But I also think that's why these books are so quickly dismissed.
Yeah. I also agree. I agree. We then get a look at the other assassins in the room. Now, Selena doesn't retain the names of the other assassins that are in the group, and she immediately writes them off based on their appearances. Quote, they weren't even in the Assassin's Guild. Not that Arobin Hamel would ever allow them in. Membership required years of training and a more than impressive track record. While these four might have been skilled, they lacked the refinement that Arobin favored in his followers. Once again, we see Selena's pride rearing its head, and we're also seeing that maybe it's not just because of her princessness, it's because it's been bred into her by her mentor, by Arobin. Status and membership among fellow assassins is important, and that hierarchy determines whether she takes these assassins seriously. And that's something she would never have learned if not for Arobin. In a lot of ways, it's not unlike the royal court. It's just the villain's version. Like, royal court, villain's version. It's ironic because Selena's going to have so much disdain for women of the royal court, but she can't see that she's in her own way just one of them. She's part of the assassin's court, and she is treating these other assassins just like the other women in the royal court treat her.
Yeah.
For me, it reminds us that Selena is an unreliable narrator. She just thought, I don't judge people by their appearance. And here you are, judging them by their appearance, their lack of membership.
Babe, you're not listening to yourself.
No, not at all. She's 19.
Oh, truth.
Maybe 18, actually. I think she's, yeah.
Oh, no. 29. 29. And then everyone else is in their 30s. Okay. I want to go back to this quote. While these four might be skilled, they lack the refinement that Arobin favored in his followers. We're getting hints of these really complicated relationship that Selena has with Arobin, and it's going to unfold more. We're going to get a little bit more of that in this episode, but just little things, because obviously she's striving for, there's a level of pride there, like, well, Arobin wouldn't have had these guys, and she's above. She went to University of Assassin. I don't know. Assassin U. Now we go into the Eye Eater. Quote, as his name suggested, Bill Chastain, the Eye Eater ate the eyes of his victims. He looked surprisingly plain, with mousy brown hair, tan skin, average height, though Selena had trouble not staring at his scar-flecked mouth. We've talked in other seasons about the ways that SJM uses first and last names. I will not call it the Taylor Swift effect. However, it's just the fact that you can have sometimes just a few details with vivid imagery. Please see All Too Well, the 10-minute version, to get that visceral feeling. Also, there's this idea that he eats eyes, and that is absolutely disgusting. It's also a way of him showing control of the victims. That's like what cannibals do, but it adds an extra horror to make his death easy. It's going to, that first death, they killed someone. It's on purpose that SJM does it to a character that we already hate now.
Right, because morality is not part of the equation yet for us or for Selena.
Yeah, it's like, good, take him out.
Yeah, he deserves to be killed.
Absolutely. So now we get into Grave. Quote, Grave made her pause. He was slight and short, with a kind of wicked face that made people quickly look away. He entered the room wearing shackles. As he introduced himself, Grave flashed an oily smile, revealing his brown teeth. Her disgust did improve when Grave ran an eye over her body. An assassin like that never stopped at just killing. Not if his victims were female. She willed herself to hold his hungry gaze. I wish there was a different phrase than eyes going over someone's body. Like, just make it slightly, do it. Like, we've had that phrase used so many times. Just change it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, on one level, you can tell that this is a description that a new author would use. Oh, that was my note. That's hilarious. I didn't even look at my note. That was just my soul. And my soul spoke both times. Okay. My second note. We are trying to get to the point that, yes, Selena is beautiful. She has a nice body, even though she, in theory, gain weight in just a few short weeks, but we're going to lean into it. And men are finding her attractive. What I'm going to do instead is analyze it like literature. Because at first, when I very first read it, I was like, oh my God, you're beautiful. I get it. Like, just let's move on. I'm going to take this as literature, like the whole point of this podcast is. the fact that Selena keeps noticing that men look her up and down, it's something that she clocks and will likely remember. Quote, she willed herself to hold his hungry gaze. And I feel like that quote leans into this theory because it shows that there's a meaning when someone looks her up and down and holds her and looks at her body. And she is noticing it every single time. So I think it's more than just like, oh my God, all these guys think I'm super hot. It's, how are you looking at me? You're looking at me up and down. Do I like it when Kale does it? Or do I not like it when this person does it? Does she even like it when Kale does it? Or does she like that she has control over him?
That's a
You
great
know?
question.
You
Great
know?
question.
Thank you. That was came au naturel. I did not have that written.
I love that you brought this up because when I read this quote, I definitely read it not differently, but I saw the intent of this section differently and this description
Mm,
differently.
mhm, mhm.
And maybe that's because Marxist lens for me. When I read an assassin like that never stopped at just killing, not if his victim was female, I read violence against women.
Yeah.
And for me, it was, I guess, and maybe it's just the way we're talking about it, right? You're talking about it of Selena clocking it. For me, it's setting the tone that we've already discussed, which is this world is not
Mhm,
kind to women.
mhm.
Violence against women is a big theme, and Selena knows it. Selena is acutely aware of how violent men can be toward women, and it's not about herself, it's about all women.
Yeah.
And we learn through other experiences or other memories Selena has, she is she's an angel of vengeance who will
Mhm.
come kill these men for the violence they commit against other women. It doesn't have to be herself.
And I agree. I think it's two. I agree with that. And I agree with what I think it's merger of
I
the
think
two,
it's both. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like there is this violence against women. I forgot to bring it up, but yes, you're right. Like there is this clearly she's saying it without saying it. He's a rapist and she can
Mhm.
tell that. And the way he's looking her up and down, we're getting different views of how men look her up and down. We had Kale earlier this chapter. We have Kane who looked her up and down and dismissed her, and we have this guy who's looking her up and down as a predator.
Yeah.
So you're getting different ways that she's viewing things, and this is more than just a moment of, oh my God, I'm just super pretty. This is
Yeah.
totally a moment of violence against women. It was just one of those things, like when I first read it, I was like, can we just have stop men can men just stop looking at women up and down all the time at Selena?
Yeah.
uh
Yeah.
but yes, I think it's all of the above. And Selena's pride is pretty big, despite having been enslaved for the past year. Quote, she hadn't spent 8 years building a reputation and a year laboring in Endovier to be disregarded like this. If I had to call myself a jewel thief again, our girl, lover, she has a lot of pride. However, I feel like her pride is partly a coping mechanism because she has felt so dehumanized at throughout her whole life, like
Mhm.
before she was even in Endovier. But it's also very Selena of her. Like she is a very complicated person. And, I think when people read this book for the first time, they think, ooh, she's just a sassy, stabby girl.
Mhm.
And she's putting on such a intense front, but at the same time, I think there is a lot of real pride. So what pride is real pride? What pride is not pride? It's like, I think I've said this before. I use humor to cope. I'm
Yeah.
also just funny. So
Yeah.
it's what's happening. You'll never
Both can
know.
be true.
I know, right? More quotes to show her pride. Do you know how insulting it is to pretend to be some nobody thief from a small city in Fenharrow? He stared her down. Quiet for a moment. Are you that arrogant? Like, she's already insulted by that it's like that she's a jewel thief, but from a small town? Ew, like no one will take me seriously. And Kale is shocked about her own arrogance. So, but remember, there's a lot of reasons why someone would have a lot of pride, a lot of ego. There's levels. Selena doesn't like being disregarded, and Kale calls her a pretty little girl in the mix of everything.
What we learn at the end of the scene is the fact that Kale has a plan. Kale has a plan that you have to be undercover. You have to not be the focus of anybody's attention and be mediocre so that you're never a threat to anybody. You're never at
Hmm.
the bottom, but you're never at the top. So nobody takes you out before the end of the competition. And Selena acts like she never thought of it herself. And Kale kind of calls her a pretty little girl in response, like, oh, just sit there and look pretty. It's not what he says, but that's kind of the spirit of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why Selena was never capable of thinking up that plot line, that,
Plan. Strategy, yeah.
Yeah, it's because it's so counterintuitive to her pride, whether that's her
Mm-hmm.
coping pride or her real pride. Why they have the exchange and why they have it here is I think that when Kale reveals his plan, Selena starts to show respect for him. Oh, like, you can fight. Oh, you do have a brain.
And to continue that quote, just kind of like what you were referencing at the end of the scene, quote, he have turned to the other champions. Is anyone staring at you? Are any of them sizing you up? No, because you're not real competition, because you don't stand between them and whatever freedom or wealth they're looking for. Exactly. It's insulting. It's smart. That's what it is. And you're going to keep a low profile throughout the entire competition. I mean, there's only so many times we can keep saying ego, pride, but she's not a genius strategist. She's not this, I am Selena's Sardathian assassin extraordinaire. She is very naive. She does not understand something that makes sense, and she probably should have. And we're going to see her fall into her own ego and her own weakness, really.
Yeah, I love that you point that out because we have to believe this right now. We have to believe that she's not capable of that reasonable thinking and strategic thinking, because we also have to believe that she's capable of being betrayed and not seeing it coming and not figuring out who it was, because that's also part of her story, right? And how she ended up in Endovir. And so we have to understand and believe that naivete, because if she were any more rational or any more strategic, she would not have ended up where she ended up, and that's Endovir.
Yep, exactly.
So all the competitors are taken outside for a run so that Brullo can judge their physical fitness. Some of the champions remain in their manacles while they run, and Selena clocks it and supposes, quote, it was a privilege that Kale hadn't locked her up too. I guess this is tongue-in-cheek. It might be genuine. I'm not quite sure. But what I do know is that being free should not be considered a privilege. Not being in manacles should not be considered a privilege. It just feels like a right. We, as readers, nor Selena, can forget the fact that Selena is still metaphorically trapped and chained. Her manacles are just not visible. In the end, she is no different from Grave or the other chained champions who were removed from prison this challenge. She just has the manacles of Lady Lillian and being a jewel thief.
Her manacles is her title and her gender.
Yes, those are her manacles. Now, through the Marxist lens, I can't ignore the use of animal descriptions or imagery. While the group goes on their run, Selena observes the other competitors and describes them in this way. Quote, like a flock of birds, they, the other champions, followed Cain. I appreciated the use of birds instead of sheep, because that's essentially what they are, right? Cain is the big bully and everyone else are the sheep following him. But in this case, SJM has chosen the use of the word birds. What are also birds? They're game. They're what aristocrats release so that they can go hunt them in their very controlled environments. And that's what these competitors
all are. Yeah, good point. Good point.
Thanks. They are literal game for the aristocrats to hunt and use for entertainment. The question, though, is Cain game, or is he something else entirely? Is he in his own category since he's leading this flock of birds? We don't know yet. During the run, Selena realizes just how out of shape she is. Now, we all know she's weak. We've been pointing it out. We will continue to point it out. However, I do feel like, after seeing the other competitors in chains, this run is like a metaphor for her life in Endovir up until now. Quote, Selena's only response was to keep her feet moving. Years of training with Arobin Hamel had taught her the dangers of giving up too easily. Then she was through the trees, and the open field surrounded her in an explosion of space and grass and blue sky. Why I think this is a metaphor is because we saw that no matter how hard it was in Endovier, Selena did not give up. And now she's kind of exploded into this big, wide open space of false freedom. She's no longer a slave. She's gotten through the hard stuff and she gets to enjoy some freedoms again. However, I do think that there is also an unspoken warning in this metaphor that despite the sudden appearance of freedom she seems to have by leaving Endovier, Selena has to keep moving and stay alert because this freedom is a fallacy. Like, this is just another step in the I have to keep going, I have to keep going. And honestly, she's going to keep going for 7 or 8 books. And then she will be done.
And we can assume she's probably still going.
Yeah, probably.
After the run, Selena gets sick, but she excuses herself in order to be sick. Quote, I dropped my ring back there, she lied, doing her best to look scatterbrained. Just give me a moment to find it. Without waiting for his approval, she entered the trees to the sneers and snickers of the champions who had overheard. I find this to be particularly interesting, not just because she's hiding her vulnerability. It's the fact that she's sick because of how tired and exhausted she is, right? But she's using the excuse of having lost a ring, something that would be associated very much so with femininity. So she's pretty, she's dainty, she has jewelry, and I lost my jewelry. It's very Kim Kardashian, earring lost in the ocean. And but she chooses to let the men believe that. She chooses to let them think that she's just a dainty woman looking for a ring and letting them laugh at her for that rather than showing her own weakness. Which means if A equals B and B equals C, she does not view femininity as a weakness.
Yeah.
She views weakness as weakness.
Right. I think that is core to who Selena and Aelin are. Femininity is not weak. It's a guise or a disguise for power.
Yeah.
And she leans into this idea that people view women or the feminine as weak because it gives her the cover she's comfortable with as an assassin. It's her cover of darkness.
Yeah.
Right? It makes her the sleeper agent.
Yep.
On the flip side, we can also view this moment from the Marxist lens. And while Selena was ultimately able to do what Kale suggested, which was be kind of in the middle of all your competitors, it's her pride that prevents her from allowing this weakness to be shown. She doesn't want to be vulnerable. She doesn't want to be viewed as weak. She doesn't care if she's viewed as feminine, but she does care about being viewed as weak. At some level, we all understand Kale knows what's going on. The question is, because he's so silent on it, does he respect her for hiding her weakness, or does he doubt her because of her weakness? And I can't, at this moment, decide what he thinks. But I have to raise that question because there are a lot of moments where he stays silent, and you don't know if he's just being respectful or if he's hiding disdain or some other feelings.
I always interpret it as being respectful and respecting her.
Yeah.
I think he respects her more when she's not putting on airs.
Yeah. Well, and I also feel like, and this is I'm going to say gender heteronormative things that I do not agree with, but I think it is a very masculine trait to not make a big deal about the fact that you threw up.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And he identifies with that of you're weak, you have this outcome, don't talk about it, let's move on.
Yeah.
That feels like a very masculine thing, and that feels something where they're both aligned. And I do ultimately agree with you. I do think he respects her because she puts on airs so many other times. For her to not put on airs in this moment, he can see how they are similar.
But it's almost like, wait a minute, but even like, I like your train of thought here. She's putting on airs, you could say, because she's putting on that masculine armor of I'm going to throw up and not complain about it. And what he's actually respecting is her presumed masculinity of I'm going to take this like a champ and not show anyone that I'm weak, when maybe that's not what Selena would do if She wasn't surrounded by competition and people who would kill her.
Right.
So this could be then viewed as Kale finding a connection to Selena that's not a real Selena moment. And
AKA the male
yeah,
gaze.
aka the male gaze, aka Kale's going to have a hard time when she becomes her own person, or he
Yeah.
realizes that she was always her own person.
Yep. Yep. And that he did not have control.
Mm-hmm. All right, good job. That was a whole chapter we did in 30 minutes. Yay.
Woohoo.
Chapter 13, let's go. Let's go.
Let's bare our teeth.
Have that be a little social clip.
You looked aggressive and threatening. It was After running, we're now in chapter 13. It is not surprising that our girl Selena is hungry, because
That'll be me after recording.
I was hungry after working out this morning, and I still haven't eaten, so I will be hungry after this as well, despite what I said earlier.
Sushi. That's not what Selena eats, though.
No, she does not eat sushi. Quote, to say that Selena was hungry would be a severe understatement. She was halfway through her meal, shoveling meat and bread down her throat when the dining room door opened. Here we see Selena trying to recover her physical strength and, in my mind, proverbial power. She is in desperate need of it, not only obviously to replenish her physical body after working out, but she's also been very vulnerable mentally over the course of this morning, or AKA the past 2 chapters. The act of eating is not only restoring her body, it is restoring her mentally. And I think that's important, that we have to see her power on both planes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then when Kale joins Selena, he's bathed and clean and he's changed clothes, unlike Selena, who hasn't changed out of her dirty training gear and she's just going in to eat. And this is a choice because Selena has chosen fuel while Kale has chosen aesthetic, which is a type of role reversal with them.
It's again Selena taking on kind of the masculine.
Mm-hmm. While they're eating, Kale critiques her, quote, "You might fight well, but your manners are a disgrace." She waited for him to mention her earlier vomiting, but he didn't continue. "I can act and talk like a lady if it pleases me. Then I suggest that you begin to do so." Acting like this is a choice. Like what she's doing, she's saying, "I can act and talk like a lady if I please," implying that this is almost like her baseline setting, like, and this is another way, like, I can act like that if I need to. Or we can also say that she's choosing to act like this as well. I think there's a lot of combination. Like we said, there's still a lot of princess in her. There's still a lot of her having to, her upbringing of how to be a master spy. And so why is she not acting like a lady? Does it remind her of her childhood? Or does it add an element that she doesn't want to put on, like, does she just not want to do that extra effort in this moment? And Kale sees that can see the strength of that, even though he's criticizing her.
Yeah, he just likes to criticize her, because if we agree that he respects her for putting on the masculine because it's like him, he's now critiquing her for not putting on the feminine.
Because he got dressed and showered and she didn't.
Which he did.
Mm-hmm.
And so he has to kind of find equilibrium with her. But I actually think Selena acting this way right now, this maintaining the masculine, is a response to how vulnerable she felt.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Being dismissed for being a woman, seeing physical violence towards women present in other competitors. Like, it is safer to be masculine right now.
Well, I mean, and she literally, like, she's making up for what she's ashamed of. She emptied her stomach and she's ashamed of it. It represented her weakness. She's out of shape. So it's immediately fixing it, right? Well, my stomach was never empty. I'm eating a bunch of food right now. It's fine. That never happened.
I agree. This scene ends, and in the next scene, it is the next day. Kale walks into Selena's bedroom, and lo and behold, instead of being asleep, she's training. She has not repeated the error of staying up late reading. Quote, She'd been exercising for an hour already. Her arms quivered as she lifted herself again. Though she might pretend to be in the middle of the pack, there was no reason to train like it. It definitely had nothing to do with her fellow competitors walloping her at the race yesterday. She already had an edge on them. She just needed it to be a bit sharper. This is what Kale expected of Selena.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Selena Kale expected to see, and that's why at the end of the scene he's going to smile at her. She is able to justify his respect because she's able to meet his expectations, which really is about matching his masculinity. Anyway, what's more important about this quote to me is that Selena herself views her own body as a weapon. It has to be sharper. While in Endovier, her body dulled and rusted. Was it still usable? Sure. But she now has the capacity, the time, and the tools to be resharpened and honed. And quite frankly, she's willing to do it because she takes pride in her ability to be a weapon, to be a great weapon. And that's what she wants to be.
Like, can we even believe what she said too? You know, like that's another thing where she was saying like, I'm just because I'm middle of the pack doesn't mean I have to train like one. She recognizes there's a certain level of like, ooh, shit, maybe I'm not great. And she says that it had nothing to do with her fellow competitors walloping her at the race. You write that in a book, usually explicitly kind of having saying, well, that's exactly what it has to do, right? There's a contrary. It's like when you read a book of saying, well, I definitely didn't check out that guy. Well, you definitely did check out that guy.
Yeah.
And so I think we can take that as saying she knows for a fact they kicked her ass, and her saying, well, I'm a weapon. I already have an edge. I just need to be sharper. So you have the two contradicting moments here where it's like, no, she actually does she even have an edge? Not really.
Not really. Her edge is concealing the truth.
Yeah.
The edge is that she's not really a jewel thief. She's really an assassin.
Yep.
But that does not inherently make her stronger than everybody else.
And also, you know, even if she was the greatest assassin, she's 18. Someone else, people are going to have more experience than you. And, you know, you could be as fit and as skilled. Years of experience will have an advantage.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to talk about Selena's dress choice following her training that day. Quote, she was glad to be out of her rooms and dressed in one of her new gowns, a lovely lilac silk dress with pale pink lace accents and pearl beading. It's such a stark contrast of who we were getting before, you know, this hyper masculine persona. I mean, again, like we're using very loose terms here. It does not represent how we view gender. But we have this, you know, masculine, I'm going to throw up, not say anything. I'm going to shove food down my throat. And she says, I can act and talk like a lady if I want to. Well, here she is acting like a lady. And it's that contrast of the morning. It's really jarring because like we go from this heavy duty assassin to, oh, we're hyper feminine now with lilac and pink lace. And there's that counterbalance. So why does this contrast feel so jarring? Does this make the reader not sure about her and not trust her? Because I know for me personally, when I first read this, it was for me too jarring. I was not on board with Selena for a while, to be honest, my first read, because I just could not pin her down. And I don't think that women aren't capable of having different aspects about them. We can be multifaceted, but it was just such a stark contrast.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. It's now just dawning on me that this is Selena continuing to push the pedal on the gaslighting of Kale. Kale is the one that was like, why can't you act more like a lady? So what does she do the next day?
Acts
she puts on that dress immediately.
Yeah.
And so her extreme flip-flopping from the masculine to the feminine and back and forth is her complying with what Kale expects of her.
Yep, you're right.
Which could be viewed as gaslighting, right? Because she's being obedient, but at the same time, it could also be her trying to appeal to him because there is that tension between them.
Yep.
And which, again, contributes to Kale's false sense of control over Selena.
Ooh,
because
nailed it. Whether it's true or not, in our minds, in my mind, you nailed it.
In my mind, it is the only truth.
Yeah, I know. But if you have a different perspective, feel free to email us.
Please always tell us your different perspective.
Or tell us we nailed it. Whatever. Do whatever.
Right, or tell us, give us more examples of why we're right. That's also acceptable.
Yeah, totally. Thank you for listening to part 1 of this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy. Stick around for part 2, which airs on Thursday.
We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. We would love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. You can submit your comments to our form at booktalkforbooktalk.com for a chance to have your feedback discussed during a future mini episode or a Patreon exclusive episode.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon or Venmo. You can follow us on, if it still exists, TikTok, because it's January 11th here, Instagram, or YouTube at the handle Book Talk for Book Talk. Bye.
Bye.
Ooh, 4.
Yeah, don't know what that was about.
Lucky number. Year of the 4.
You're being facetious?
Yeah.
Just making sure.
What, lucky number 4? Because of death?
Yes.
I didn't even know. I was thinking year of the snake. That's 8.
Yeah.
Oh no. I didn't even know I was being clever.
Okay. That's why I had to ask for clarity.
Okay. Evelyn Sita is at the airport and she just bought Not in Love by Allie Hazelwood. That's one that you liked, right?
So good. My new focus in life and in my wardrobe is quiet luxury. The things that are nice, that make me feel good, but I know are worth the money that I spent on it without being boisterous.
I've definitely noticed that I've been spending more time on elevating what I'm purchasing, and some of my favorite go-to items have been from Quince. That's because they offer a range of high-quality items, but with prices that are within reach and very reasonable.
They have 100% Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50 and washable silk tops and dresses that I love to wear to work.
Quince items are usually priced between 50 to 80% less than other similar brands.
They work with top factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing processes and cut out the middleman in the process.
One of my all-time favorite cardigans is actually from Quince, and every time I wear it, I always get compliments of how cozy and how soft it is.
My favorite Quince item is this button-up washable silk blouse that I wear to work, and what I love about it is it's so versatile. I can pair it with a cardigan, I can wear it on its own, I can wear it with a blazer, and it always makes me feel good about myself.
Give yourself the luxury gift you deserve with Quince. Go to quince.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns.
That's QUINCE.com/booktalk to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK.
The search for truth never ends. Introducing June's Journey, a hidden object mobile game with a captivating story. Connect with friends, explore the Roaring 20s, and enjoy thrilling activities and challenges while supporting environmental causes. After 7 years, the adventure continues with our immersive travels feature. Explore distant cultures and engage in exciting experiences. There's always something new to discover. Are you ready? Download June's Journey now on Android or iOS.